Hello everyone, welcome to my channel PeachyCloudSecurity. I am Anjali Shukla, Senior Security Engineer, speaker and trainer at various international conferences. I'm a founder of Kubernetes Village and leading OWASP EKS Goat project. This is session 2 of my EKS series, which is AWS EKS Security. And I discussed the basics of EKS and how EKS is different from Kubernetes, authentication and authorization in part 1. You can visit that link. I have added that link to a description. So let me share my screen. So this is AWS EK Security. I'll discuss the top 10 best practices that you can use while designing defense for your EKS cluster. But why the security is important? Because of the growing attack surfaces. When we are migrating our workloads to a Kubernetes cluster or a managed Kubernetes cluster, and there that cluster is communicating with other services like S3, RDS, Secret Manager. So all those attack surfaces that are valid with respect to those will be valid here as well. So the attack surface is increased. And that is why the EK security and security of our all other services is important as well. Quick tips: we can regularly audit our IAM roles and permission, follow the principle of least privileges, and set up monitoring in our cluster. So let's start with our top 10 EKS best practices. First is insecure EKS API server access. So if there is a publicly accessible API server, it will allow attackers to access your cluster. That is why that API server should be behind the VPN, and we can whitelist that traffic and also use the RBAC to further control or limit the permissions. Second, securing images from repositories. We should make sure that images are getting pulled only from a trusted and a verified repositories. Public repositories like Docker Hub should not be allowed. Then we can restrict the permissions over ECR access and make sure that we are scanning our container images before getting deployed into a cluster. Third, encrypting data at rest. So in Kubernetes, we use services like EBS, EFS, and FS for the persistent data, because in Kubernetes, it is ephemeral storage. So we have to keep our data for a longer period of time, and that is why we use these services. So the storage volume should be encrypted, and that we can achieve using AWS KMS, Key Management System. We can encrypt our data or storage. Next is minimize pods IAM permissions. So IAM role is attached to a pod to function the applications. And there we can use a principle of least privileges. So thereby defining only specific permissions are attached onto that pod. Next is securing node group IAM role. So this is different. Pods IAM role means we are attaching a IAM role to a pod. Whereas node group IAM roles means we are attaching an IAM role to a node level where multiple pods are running onto that particular node. And that is why it is very important to restrict these node group IAM role so that pods are not able to get access to the node group level credentials. And that we can define using a specific permissions required. Like if I want only S3 bucket permissions are there, then a specific resource name I can mention here and a specific permissions as well. Next is unsecured load balancers. So we use load balancer whenever we would like to expose any service over the internet. That's where we use a load balancers. So restricting security group or the traffic there could be a really good approach while securing our load balancers, because it's very challenging to track the load balancers in our cluster. So whenever we are creating that load balancer, make sure that there only we are restricting the security group. Additionally, we can also restrict the permissions that is creating that load balancers so that no service can create those additional or unnecessary load balancers. Next is network segmentation. So by default, pod of one namespace can communicate to the pods of other namespace. This restriction should be there. And for that, we can implement policies. Now, why this restriction should be there? Because if pod of one namespace is compromised, the attacker will also be able to access the other pods as well, because there is no network restrictions. So that's why we can restrict it. And for the restrictions, we can use the CNI like Cilium. Next, real-time monitoring with guard duty. So the guard duty is a real-time threat detection service that identify any anomalous behavior. So we can leverage this service and implement the monitoring to detect any malicious activities happening in our cluster. Next is a poor secret management. So we should not hard code credentials in our pods environment or a nodes environment. And for that, we can use secret manager service, which is an AWS service, or we can use third party like HashiCorp Vault as well. Next and the last is enforce security with admission controller. So we can enforce certain policies like enabling the read-only file system with the help of admission controllers. And for that, we can use Gatekeeper or Kyberno. And this is a really important practice that we can use, that we are defining certain restrictions there. Thank you. So today we discussed the top 10 EKS best practices that we can use while defining a defense solutions or while defining the security in our AWS environment. Thank you. Stay connected for more videos. Follow PeachyCloud Security.